Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, gaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief, and Roll for Combat. That's right. They are sponsoring us once again. I'm going to talk about them in just a few moments. But first of all, welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. This is live stream 1120. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I will normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby. And tonight, I'm actually going to share my process as far as doing a game review. So what do I base my review scores on? What do those review scores mean? Things like that. There was some interest in learning about that during last night's show. So that's what tonight's topic is going to be about. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't know how exciting that'll be, but we'll try to be as entertaining as possible. So, of course, should also point out when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Because this is a live stream, there is also chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber for at least 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way that we keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you check both those boxes and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I'll do my very best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Sean O'Donnell, well known as Cave, Dark Autumn Scribe, and Glimon RX, as well as Pete's Dracolich, are with us in chat. I'll take a guess. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D might be lurking in the shadows right now. One of our chat moderators, making sure to keep the lid on things. Doom Colonist and Coco B are also popping on in. So welcome aboard. So let's talk about our sponsor. That's right, because the Dispatch is sponsored by Roll for Combat and their Year of Titans Kickstarter, which actually launched yesterday. This includes 13 new playable species, new ancestries delivered each and every month in 2025. You'll find unique species and subspecies you won't be able to get anywhere else. There's even extensively developed lore and developed cultural insights. There's ancestral feats, new backgrounds, well, for the 5e edition, and over 20 tokens depicting the species and a variety of character options. It's designed for both 5e Dungeons & Dragons as well as Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you are going the Pathfinder route, you will also receive a free ancestry file. And if you do decide to back this Kickstarter, you'll actually have access to the development team, including Steven's phone number over at Roll for Combat for you to call at any time, any hour with any questions you may happen to have about this Kickstarter. Zoinks! You're going to get exactly what you need to effortlessly add fantastic new playable species into your campaign. Now, there is a short Kickstarter video. It's about a minute and a half. So let's take a peek.
Remember the last time you played a tabletop RPG and your friend cast a fireball spell, killing all the enemies and exploding your whole adventuring party? I know they say that living well is the best revenge. Well, how about you play as a living fireball spell and let revenge be the best revenge with Battlezoo Ancestry's Year of Titans. Once a month for the next year, you'll receive a unique playable species you won't find anywhere else for your D&D 5th Edition or Pathfinder 2e games. Now you can play as a living spell, a skillful cyclops, a wicked troll, or even a mighty kraken. And those are just the ones I can pronounce. Hair jar?
It's pronounced ein hairyar.
Say tires?
It's satyrs.
Okay, I think I got this one. Dual hand.
Doulahan. It's a headless horseman from Irish folklore, you gigantic tit.
Every month you'll receive a new PDF or Foundry VTT module, along with handmade battle maps, tokens for your virtual tabletop, both static and animated, and detailed in-world lore entries, allowing you to easily add these unique species to your next tabletop session. All this and more for less than a monthly Egg McMuffin. Delicious. Head on over to the link in the description to learn more, because if you sign up for the Kickstarter, you'll get a bonus species a year early. The Mighty Titan. That's 13 unique species throughout 2025 to amaze your friends and family. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to call my dungeon master and tell them that I'm going to be playing as Godzilla from now on. Godzilla.
You can reserve your very own Year of Titans for either Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder 2nd Edition in PDF, or you can decide you want these releases for Foundry Virtual Tabletop. It's your choice. Or you can get both. It's two products, one pledge level, I guess. So if you want to go with either PDF or the Foundry Virtual Tabletop, you can do so for a pledge of $59.99. You know what? I forgot to take a look if it's $59 even or $59.99. I think it's $59. For some strange reason, I don't think Kickstarter allows you to like have sense. I mean, common sense, sure, but sense, I don't think they do. So I'm going to say it's $59. I promise I'll take a look to make sure I know what's going on tomorrow. Anyway, like I said, you can choose for D&D or Pathfinder in PDF or Foundry. That is the price. Or if you want to get both, you can do so for a $99 pledge. And this is through December 12th. Delivery will actually begin in January. That's right, because each and every month of 2025, you'll be getting a Titan coming your way. Very nice. Very nice. My good buddy, Scott Weigel, is with us. Yes, Scott and I went to high school together. Yes. Agile Monk is here. Yes, Sarah D is chiming on in from the shadows. Kathy Evans is here, as is John Muscola. So Cleveland RX says, how about putting a black and white filter on that Battlezoo commercial and playing it during the intermission? You already got to see it once. Come on. All right, let's move on into the news, because now available from Osprey Games is the skirmish level miniatures game Freaks! Exclamation point. Here's the lowdown. A rules-light skirmish war game set in a bombastic post-apocalyptic world of mutants and cartoon violence. Freaks pits savage mutant gangs against each other as they pillage the ruins of a devastated world in pursuit of hallowed artifacts. It's like artifacts with a Z. These objects of great atomic power were forged in the flames of nuclear destruction and can bestow mighty mutations on their bearers in an instant, gain leathery wings and fly above the battlefield, grow giant plates of bone armor, or develop chameleon-like skin and fade from sight. But beware, the consequences of this power: collect too many artifacts or rip too many from the bodies of your fallen foes, and you might lose control. Mortal can only bear so many mutations before they are twisted beyond humanity, becoming one of the monstrous creatures that stalk the wastes. Freaks is a fully streamlined gameplay. It's not presented correctly. Freaks has streamlined gameplay that gets you playing fast. Generate an entire squad in seconds by drawing from a standard deck of playing cards. Move your fighters without measuring. Resolve attacks in a single match die roll. Lead your fledgling group of nobodies through a campaign as they evolve into mutant killers and pledge their allegiance to the atomic gods with a Z. The 128-page hardcover is available now. It just came out, I believe it was yesterday. And it does carry an MSRP of $30. You can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $21. And you'll notice I'm sharing images of some of these characters. Osprey Games actually provided digital files for fold out, cut out standees. And that's what that is that you're taking a look at right there. I received a copy of Freaks. So stay tuned. I will have a review of that in the not too distant future. Cthulhu is with us. And welcome aboard. Looks like chat's off and rolling already. Let's move on to our next news piece because January is going to bring the Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition starter set. Say that 5 times fast. And here's the skinny from Modiphius Entertainment. To boldly go where no one has gone before. The Star Trek Adventures role-playing game takes you to the final frontier. You may travel to the edges of known space, to colonies in need, to the borders of neighboring galactic powers, or into the eye of interstellar phenomena. Explore strange new worlds, encounter fantastical alien life forms, and engage in dramatic adventures in a detailed and immersive galaxy. Play straight out of the box. This starter set contains everything you need to begin your journey into the final frontier, including an epic campaign of 3 linked missions designed to challenge a brave crew of 3 to 7 player characters. The Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition starter set includes a 48-page booklet providing an overview of the 2D20 game system adapted for Star Trek Adventures for use with the included campaign, which happens to be a 60-page booklet containing the epic 3-part campaign, Infinite Combinations, which guides you through the rules as you play so you can begin exploring the galaxy straight out of the box. You'll also get ship sheets and character sheets, a statistics sheet for the Constitution class, USS Challenger, and 7-player character sheets with rules references on the backs. You'll get 4 double-sided rules reference sheets, as well as 5 20-sided dice in a unique color only available in this starter set. There are also 6 momentum tokens for each of the 6 civilizations. So you got 36 momentum tokens, 36 threat tokens on the reverse side, and 9 determination tokens. This starter set is going to carry an MSRP of $29.99 when it lands in January, or I guess I should say when it beams down in January. Currently, you can pre-order from the Modiphius website. They're indicating $31.99. I noticed the Modiphius website is always a little bit more than the MSRP, but it is also my understanding if you pre-order now, you will receive the PDFs right now. That is the rumor. That's the rumor. Chris Lundgren's with us in chat. Mentions they bought a bunch of the Star Trek Adventures releases. They love it, but finding a game master in their area is insane. It's like, I guess, trying to win the lottery. Yeah. Well, you know what? The thing is, if you want to play something, you're the one who's got to run it. That's how these things work. Unless it's D&D. And even then, I understand it's very difficult for people to find dungeon masters out there too. So I don't know. I don't know. But this looks pretty interesting, and it's a pretty enticing price point, $29.99 for the starter set. And it looks like you'll get more than just a session worth of adventuring out of it too. So very cool. Very cool. I wish I had an opportunity to take a peek at the second edition of Star Trek Adventures. I would be very, very curious. It's I know a lot of people don't like the 2D20 system. It's not that bad. Plus, if it's like the first edition of Star Trek Adventures, it was trimmed way down. So, like, for some of the 2D20 releases, a little bit of crunch, not a ton, a little bit, far less in Star Trek Adventures because it's designed to be inviting for everybody. All right, on to our next news piece, because earlier today, EN Publishing launched their Kickstarter to fund Monstrous Menagerie 2 Hordes and Heroes. I said hordes, the mind out of the gutter there. Here's the scoop. Monstrous Menagerie 2 Hordes and Heroes is the long-awaited sequel to 2021's critically acclaimed Monstrous Menagerie, with a slew of new monsters, new horde monster rules to let your heroes carve their way through large groups of minions, heroic monsters which can level up with you, whether as a companion or a recurring foe, and all the helpful tools you loved in Monstrous Menagerie. This book is here to take your level up, and D&D games to a whole new level. Hundreds of new monsters, horde monsters for bigger battles, heroic monsters which level up with you, high-level villains and foes, new worms, fae, purple, and spirit dragons, new colloquy, including the Apex colloquy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Legends and lore tables for each monster, including false rumors. Very nice. Monstrous Menagerie 3 Hordes and Heroes provides nearly 300 more monsters for your level up A5E or D&D 5E. I'll take a guess the 2024 edition as well. Games at all challenge ratings up to CR28. Meet the Whisper Snake, Deathless Legionnaire, Death Spider, Prismatic Ooze, Advocate Devil, and more. Now, there is a Kickstarter video. Yeah, this is another one that's about a minute and a half. So let's give it a gander. Long finger, bum, ba, dun, 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 dun. I just need some Shirley Bassey to to do that, right? I'll take a guess. 2 of you out there in chat understood what the hell I was just doing there. Kabuki Kid is with us in chat. Double K's in the house. Good to see you. So this Kickstarter funded in less than 15 minutes. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover plus PDF as well as digital extras for a pledge of approximately $71. Remember, EN Publishing's over across the pond, so there you go. If you want to just go all digital, you can do so with a pledge of approximately $25. That sounds like a pretty damn good deal. Through December 12th. And you can expect the digital products in December with the physical book to follow next June. So yes, Kabuki Kid says, some of us know Goldfinger. There you go. There you go. Sean O'Donnell says, Level Up is so funny to them because of how much it essentially predicted Dungeons & Dragons 5.5. I mean, 2024. I've never seen Level Up. You know, it's weird because, maybe I'm misremembering this. I could have swore EN Publishing had reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in checking out A5E. And it wasn't that long ago. And then nothing happened. So, I don't know. I'll have to take a look. I'll have to dig through my emails and see. Like I said, I get so many publishers emailing me back and forth. I might be misremembering it, but I could have swore we were trying to get on board with Morris and EN Publishing. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Ars Fabula by Gradacious is with us in chat. Agile Monk says, Level Up is just the 5e D&D they wanted. They love it. I know there was a starter set that came out not too long ago because I remember sharing news about it. And it looked like it was a fairly substantial starter set, if I remember correctly. So very nice. On to our next news piece. Chaosium Inc. and Humble Bundle have teamed up for a spectacular money-saving offer on John Wick's 7th Sea role-playing game. And I've got the deets on the deal. The perfect mix of swashbuckling and sorcery. Gather up your party for endless adventure with a staple from the tabletop role-playing game genre, 7th Sea. This collection of books, campaigns, and resources will have your merry gang of crewmen swashbuckling and spellcasting in no time. Get amazing loot like 7th Sea, Lands of Gold and Fire, 7th Sea, The New World, as well as 7th Sea, Land of 1,000 Nations, and more. Explore this seaworthy bundle from Chaosium Inc. Plus, your purchase will support Oceania. 7th Sea is a tabletop role-playing game of swashbuckling and intrigue, exploration and adventure, taking place on the continent of Thea, a land of magic and mystery inspired by our own Europe. Players take the roles of heroes thrown into global conspiracies and sinister plots, exploring ancient ruins of a race long vanquished and protecting the rightful kings and queens of Thea from murderous villains. Save the Queen of Avalon from treacherous blackmail, thwart a deadly assassination attempt on the Cardinal of Castile, raid the villainous fleets of Vodachi merchant princes, free the Prince of Sarmatian Commonwealth from a mysterious curse, make decisions that alter the very course of Thean history. In 7th Sea, you're a hero, an icon of Thea, ready to live and die for causes that matter. You bravely take on a dozen thugs with swords, knives, and guns, all on your own. You're a trusted knight, a loyal bodyguard, or even an adventuring queen herself. In other words, you're D'Artagnan, Milady de Winter, the dread Pirate Roberts, Jack Sparrow, and the Scarlet Pimpernel all rolled up into one. This is a game of high adventure, mystery, and action. This is a game of intrigue and romance. Right now, you can score all 35 PDFs on offer for a donation of $18 or more through November 28th. Yes, you heard that correctly. 35 PDFs, $18 or more. That is a smoking deal. Once again, it's another one of these humble bundles that have come along. It's like, oh my goodness. So currently over on Humble Bundle, there is this. There is also I want to say it's Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but I've done a news piece about it already. I know it's a Cubicle 7 one. Maybe I'm thinking maybe it's Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory, something like that. So pretty smoking deal. I reviewed the first edition of 7th Sea years and years and years ago. In fact, it was so long ago, it was a written review. So there you have that. W. Forge is joining us asking, wasn't 7th Sea one of the first $1 million tabletop role-playing game Kickstarters? I seem to recall it did really, really well. That was actually when John Wick had his own company. And I'm not sure, I think John Wick ran into some financial issues by way of Kickstarter. And that is why 7th Sea is now published through Chaosium Inc. John Wick's completely involved with this. It's not like they were, Chaosium was like, okay, we'll buy that from you. It's just he no longer has his own. I think, if I remember right, I think it was John Wick Productions was the name of the company. So there's that. Glooming RX says it is a Warhammer Fantasy bundle. It's different content than their previous bundles. I'll have to take a peek. Maybe we'll have a news piece about that tomorrow, because the email that I had got regarding it made it sound like it was the same one that had been up there not too long ago. Glooming RX also points out that there's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle bundle that essentially has every single comic. Well. Kind of cool. All right, let's move on to our final news piece, because there's an interesting new role-playing game which has landed in print from Melsonian Arts Council and Exalted Funeral. And here's what I know about Swivers. The Smoke is the greatest city in the world, the beating heart of an empire. It is filthy and sprawling like a burst pustule left open to weep besides the iron gray sea. It does have a name, but only the knobs and learned readers know it. Beneath slumbers the midden, the interconnected passages of built-over streets, basements, tombs, and hidden layers where criminals lurk, beasts squat, and lost wealth resides. An enterprising fellow with a sledgehammer can traverse in any direction they please, not that they'll like what they find. It is rife with corpse thieves, cellar breakers, and enterprising businessmen shunned in sunlit places. The rich of the Smoke honor their dead with elaborate crypts, whose morose edifices encroach even further into their slums. The trap smiths of the Smoke do fine business from their craft, and the fences keep the money flowing, thanks to enterprising tomb robbers. What is Swivers? Swivers is a brand new game built from the ground up to give you a grotty system for running a grotty game. It's written by Luke Gearing and illustrated by David Hoskins. Swivers is a lightweight set of rules married to a full set of tools and tables for running a game in the chaotic sprawl of the Smoke, its many districts, and the Midden. What a city it is. Corrupt officials, looming war, rogue sorcerers, monsters below, and knobs above. Violence rests as thick as the smog. Nothing is sacred, and it's always bloody raining. Swivers is a game about bastards. You and your gang of criminals scarper through heists and sewers, stalk through the filth of the smoke, and if you're lucky, you'll make it out with a few extra shillings. The whole of this city is your filthy, sickly oyster. Every group of swivers will have their very own smoke. The GM starts a campaign by generating the city, starting from a core of districts: the Royal Jail, the Palace, the Mayoral District, and the Docks. From there, they follow along Swivers' generation tables to flesh out and potentially endlessly expand their rotten city. The 98-page hardcover with PDF can be had over at Exalted Funeral for an MSRP of $42. Or if you want to just check out the PDF alone, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $13. I gotta say, sounds unique, sounds interesting. If you enjoy games with the criminal element, you might want to get on board this. And I gotta say, $13 for the PDF, that's relatively reasonable. I mean, it's 98 pages. It's not like you're getting a 500-page book, but still, could be kind of cool. Could be kind of cool. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. And speaking of thegaminggang.com, it is newly redesigned. I had to make a few tweaks yesterday, but I got through that last night. So it looks like everything is all set. I still have about 900 reviews that I have to reformat. But other than that, we should be okay. So if you haven't popped by to check it out, give it a peek. Give it a peek and take a look at the 11,000 articles over on thegaminggang.com. Pretty wild. When I saw that article count, I was like, what? It's like, really? And I thought, oh, yeah, I guess so, yeah. Chris Lundgren says they would try the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay if the starter set was still around, but alas, they were told they no longer make the starter set. I think it's still available as a PDF. So if you are in the market for a PDF, we already were just discussing there is a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay humble bundle going on, and I would take a guess starter set's probably part of it, or at least the core rule book. I mean, you can always grab the core rule book. Gleeman RX says, hey, that cover art looks like that scene from Jeff's childhood. I wasn't a child. I was in my teens. I was probably 16. The Call of Cthulhu game where the NPC got impaled on the fence. Agile Monk and Pete Strakolich do like the new site design. Very nice. Very cool. Appreciate you stopping by to take a peek. Hey, if you do pop in, leave a comment. I mean, it's weirdly enough, very, very few comments on the website. I guess it's probably because it's more an informational news site, although the show's on there, as are my reviews and that. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird. Anywho, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Still tariff-free deliciousness. And a few of you popped in recently to paypal.me/thegaminggang to make not small donations, including my high school friends Scott Weigel, John Webster, Craig Watkins, and very own chat moderator who is, I was just about to say, is probably running a game tonight and just popped into chat, the Madman. Very good. Psychic. There you go. It's a psychic connection there. Kevin R. Smith is popping on in, saying he's just in time for intermission. Yeah, pretty much. Only thing I was going to mention is I can't believe how many emails I got from people who watched last night's stream who want to argue with me what a fucking tariff is. Willful ignorance just drives me insane. It's one thing to be ignorant, and most people use that word incorrectly because ignorant just simply means unknowing. So you have not had exposure to facts about something. So it's not a bad thing to be ignorant of whatever, but to be willfully so, oh man. Kabuki Kid says, yeah, terrorists sort of have a strict definition. It isn't an opinion. Yeah. Kevin R. Smith says they caught the stream on Memorex. They were expecting me to get the people who didn't pay attention in high school history. Sean O'Donnell says their dad was a financial advisor all his professional life, and the stream gave me conversational fodder. He agreed with your take. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I wasn't necessarily going way out on a limb. Tomorrow, we might discuss, and I got to be honest, I'm not necessarily always thrilled to talk about like bummer subjects. Like last night, in my opinion, that's a bummer subject. But I get a bad feeling that our hobby is going to take a nasty downturn in the next year. One of the reasons is because I have heard from some, once again, this is like inside baseball stuff, and I'm not really at liberty to tell you who said what, but I have been hearing that times are tight again, a little tight for some companies out there. So it's like, don't know. I don't know. And, we kind of touched on this a tiny bit last night. And if we do this topic tomorrow, I'll probably discuss it a bit further. Not only will a pricing increase really be detrimental to the hobby, people not having disposable income will be far more detrimental to the hobby. So Kabuki Kid says, yep, they know a tidbit of some of the inside baseball for certain companies. Yep. And if somebody says, Jeff, this is off the record, I'm like, oh yeah. And a lot of times I'll have, discussion, or I'll email back and forth with people, and I'll say, don't worry, it's off the record. And like, okay, well, I assumed it was. I'm like, yeah, okay. Kevin R. Smith says the continued supply chain issues were hitting companies hard, even without the threat of tariffs. Just like somebody had commented, well, they can just print stuff here. But we don't have the manufacturing anymore. We don't have the facilities to do it anymore. And as was pointed out, I think it was either Stephen from Roll for Combat or TS from Cubicle 7 who was hanging out in chat with us last night. I think it was one of the two of them said that we don't even have paper and ink, that we would have to import that from China. It's like, Coco P says, you honestly can't believe people are going to argue with what little knowledge they have. Oh no, I never said I didn't believe it. I said I don't have any time for people who are willfully ignorant. Oh yeah, of course. I honestly, I expected more pushback from people, which I have not. A few people were like, "Oh well, that just teaches them not to have their games made in communist China." It's like, well, okay, so where are they going to get them made? It's like, if that's the only place, we kind of talked about that. I'm not going to rehash what we talked about last night, because some of this we could discuss tomorrow. But yeah. Sean O'Donnell said, yeah, Stephen was saying it takes twice as long and quite a bit more money to get anything printed in the US. Yeah. And you don't have as many options available to you as a creator, designer, publisher, what have you. Now, I know that Cubicle 7, in fact, TS had mentioned this yesterday, confirmed it. Their printer is out of Poland. So I know some of the European role-playing game companies, theirs are printed in Poland, and I think some in Germany. They try to stay away from their books being printed in China. And I had to say, production quality of, now I know Cubicle 7 just recently changed, but I think the last two major like print releases were from the Polish printer. Pretty good, pretty solid. So Chris Leonard asked, what printing companies exist in the USA? There are still some, because you figure Drive-Thru RPG does print on demand, and I know they're not having their books printed overseas or anything. Chris Leonard asked, where's Dragonbane printed? So that would be from Free League Publishing. Free League Publishing might be out of China. Try not to knock stuff off there. It is not going to say. Oh, no, wait, sorry. UAB says Standard Impressa UAB. Isn't that Germany? Czech Republic? Semper Buffo says Czech Republic. So anyway. But yeah. I just got a feeling. Modiphius is printed in Eastern Europe. Yeah. Like I said, most of the European game companies like Modiphius Entertainment, which would be out of the UK, just like Cubicle 7 Games is now out of Ireland. Kevin R. Smith says there might be a distinction between the hobby and the industry. If physical books get too expensive, people will go to PDFs, just keep playing using old books. The reality, too, is if you're a small publisher, this is the kind of stuff that's going to knock you out of business. And you really, as a small publisher, you can't rely on sales through Drive-Thru RPG. I mean, you just can't. I mean, most companies, granted, for some people, that's their only avenue to get anything in front of an audience. I get that. But it's not easy. It's not easy for small publishers on Drive-Thru RPG. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not psychic, so I don't know. Sean O'Donnell says Lulu has 3 printers in the U.S. Well, okay, it's been a while. I've had mixed results with Lulu. I had one book that was a soft cover, which was awful. And it was just rife with, I mean, every page had multiple print errors on it. And then I got my copy of Osric from Lulu, and it was fine. But that was a hardcover. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Anywho, this is not our topic tonight. Our topic tonight is going to be how I approach reviewing games. And I will talk about that right after a brief intermission. Well, okay. Once again, let's share real quick. I think I haven't popped it up there, have I? I have. Okay. All right. I already showed the little graphic for paypal.me. So we're good. So let's take a peek at a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Hello. You know, when you fix an Italian food, everything has got to be just perfect. Especially when you're making a pizza. I'm going to show you. Looks so good. You betcha my life. And it's delicious. That's the pizza you get at the theater. So hurry up. Get yourself some.
How about some steamy, fragrant, flavorful hot chocolate right now? Ah, there's a treat for the whole family. Good, mighty good. You have the thirst, we have the hot chocolate at the refreshment stand.
Yipes, stripes, peach nuts got 'em. Yipes, stripes, new cherry stripe gum.
Yipes, stripes, peach nuts got 'em. Yipes, stripes, new grape stripe gum.
Me first. I'm here to announce new beech nut cherry stripe gum.
Me first. I'm here to announce new beech nut grape stripe gum.
Announcing new beech nut cherry stripe gum. By beech nut, by gum, by cherry stripe, by gum.
By grape stripe, by gosh.
Extra cherry flavor in it.
Extra grape flavor on it.
In every luscious stripe.
In every scrumptious stripe.
By cherry stripe,
By grape stripe.
by beech nut, by gum. More flavor to chew, more flavors to choose. The flavor starts lively, the flavor stays lively. By fruit stripe, by cherry stripe,
By grape stripe.
by gum. For the whole family, try new beech nut cherry stripe.
After new grape stripe. By gum.
Ghoulish as Halloween laughter. That's a bucket of blood.
Let us make the scene. Crazy.
Beatniks, some brilliant, some bawdy, some brutal. That's a bucket of blood.
No, you're going to shoot me. Don't shoot.
Horrifying as murder for art's sake. That's a bucket of blood. The picture that'll make you sick, sick, sick with laughter. See a bucket of blood. And the giant leeches, vampires of romance, an orgiastic, intimate experience. Blood-chilling and horrifying. Thrill with the giant leeches and a bucket of blood.
Hey, you come on over and I make you a pizza. You know, if you look into the dictionary for stereotypical Italian, you will see a picture of that actor. It's chef hat. Ay, ay, ay. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Yes, and then Coco B says, beatniks and leeches? Oh my, what a double feature. That one character actor, who off the top of my head, I do not know their name. He must have been in hundreds of movies and TV shows. Guy's like the murderer in A Bucket of Blood. So they're like, oh, wow, he was even old in the 50s, huh? All righty then. So tonight, I'm going to discuss how I approach reviewing a game. And simply, the publisher's check clears, and I give it a big thumbs up. All right, there you go. There you have it. All right, that's it for this time out. No, I have had publishers offer to pay me. It was like, no. I can say, though, they were never major publishers. They were pretty small. So I think that they were a little concerned. Whoops. I'm trying to fix the leg of this table. There we go. Flaming Heron's with us in chat saying, so our checks pass and you review what we like? No, that's not really how it works. Coco Bede says it was Dick Miller. Thank you for sharing that. Melwinius from York is popping on in. So they've got the holidays off work, so they get to check out the show live. Very cool. As Kabuki Kid is going to feed her kitties. Very nice. Anywho, I think the few times that I've been offered payment was because the publishers were afraid that a not spectacular, stellar review was going to hurt them. But in that situation, I just don't. I mean, I'm not here to like put anybody out of business. I think everybody knows that. That's why I know I'll have folks email me saying, hey, how come you never have like really overly negative reviews? And for one, I don't enjoy doing them. So I try to be an ambassador of the hobby. So I kind of stay. I mean, back in the day, I have done reviews that got 0 out of 10, 1. But I mean, I've done reviews where it was 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10. Just don't enjoy them. I just don't enjoy doing them. And I know there are people out there who, some of them kind of seemingly get off on doing negative reviews. They seem to like they really enjoy doing negative reviews. I'm not like that. So, Chris Langren says, Jeff and everyone, how reliable is the rating system on Board Game Geek? I've used it to help me buy board games. I mean, there's been games that I've liked that scored pretty low, and there's games that have scored really high. I'm looking at you, Gloomhaven. Or actually, I'm looking at you, Gloomhaven. That I was kind of like, just like something like Brass. Probably not my sort of game. People love it. It's always like top 3 nowadays. I don't know. I'd say it's fairly reliable because it's an average. So one person can't like review bomb it. So Kabuki Kid says Board Game Geek is a user vote. It isn't a bad way to look, but the average of everyone isn't always going to match your personal tastes. I agree with that. I do agree with that. Flaming Heron says, it wasn't that god-awful Stranger Things starter set for D&D, was it? No, that actually, I think, got a 3. I think that had 3, maybe a 4 at most. No, the game, it was called, trying to remember, Personal Baggage, I think it's called. It was just absolute trash. And it was essentially you got together with like your friends or family, whatever, and you bitched about your friends and family. It was like, what? It was like, whoa. I was like, you got to be kidding me. It was dog shit. It was bad. I think that was probably the worst game I have ever reviewed. Almost positive. Flame here, it sounds like hours of fun, minutes of fun. All right, so let's talk about how I approach a review. And I do it a little bit differently depending on if it's a board game or if it's a role-playing game release. So we'll talk about the board game first. So one of the first things I do is I check out the component quality. So is it like the thinnest cardstock they possibly can get? Like for the game board or for the tokens pieces, things like that? Is it, rehashed like bingo tokens for, like little red discs and stuff like that? Those kind of things, that's going to bring the score down because it's just cheap quality. But of course, a nice thick game board, nice thick cardstock on those game pieces and that's going to boost up the rating. Because I kind of start off at a 5. So a 5, as far as our rating scale, is a game that's yeah. Would you play it again? Yeah, if there was anything else to play, yeah. Would I go out of my way to play it again? No, not at all. So keep that in mind. So I kind of go from there. Next thing, when I read the rules, do I understand how to play the game? I got to be honest, that is a big part of my board game reviews. If I read through the rule book and I'm able to understand how to play and teach, say, Elliot and my brother Greg how to play from that rule book, that means a lot to me, because putting together a rule book that's not just an old Avalon Hill case point where you fall asleep 3 pages in. So how far did you get into that squad leader rule book? Well, I got into movement and then I dozed off. I get it. It's just how it was back in the day, right? It wasn't like we had an option. It was just all case point presentations. So that's a big deal. If I can understand how to play the game from just reading the rule book. And if I have to read the rule book twice, I have to read it twice. That's not a big deal because I will miss things. We've played games where we searched back and forth, high and low through the rule book to try to find a rule and then finally discovered it someplace. And sometimes it was our fault that, we were just overlooking something. And then other times it's sort of like, wow, why is that rule there? Why would they put it there? Next is actually playing the game. And for board games, this is why it takes a while for me to get board game reviews out there. I play a board game 3 times before I give it a review. Now, if it's god awful, it's only getting 1 play. If it's all right, I'll go through the rule book again to make sure that we were playing it correctly. Because there have been times where we misinterpreted a rule or just missed a rule. A prime example of that was a game that I don't even think's in print any longer. It was from Days of Wonder called Cargo Noir. And I played it the first time. I was actually in Arizona at this time. Played it with some friends the first time, and I thought, what the fuck is this? I was like, this is awful. It's like, there's no way for you to figure out any sort of strategy, how to, how to win. And it wasn't something where it's like, oh, well, I'm adjusting on the fly. Well, it turned out I had completely misunderstood the scoring rules. So I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. I was like, Kabuki Kid says, yeah, those Avalon Hill rule books are good to reference, but not great to learn straight from. They challenge anyone to learn how to play up front only from the rule book. That one was brutal. Yeah, and I guess eventually that Kickstarter finally got in the hands of backers. After that big fiasco. Agile Monk says Squad Leader is their favorite board game. Advanced Squad Leader was a bit more challenging, but loved it. I liked Squad Leader. I tried Advanced Squad Leader once, and it was like, nah, this really isn't my thing. Trying to remember what it was about it. Obviously, I think it was the complexity, but Squad Leader wasn't exactly a stroll through the park either. Playing that. Okay, so anyway, so I will play a game 3 times, and how well I enjoyed it is the biggest factor. But how well the rest of the gang enjoyed it also will come into play. Because there have been some games where I played them and I was sort of like, yeah, I mean, I liked it, but, and like Elliot and Greg or Cameron and Elliot, whoever, are like, man, that was a great game. What are you talking about? That was a lot of fun. I will make an adjustment to my review score for a board game that maybe I was kind of cool on, but they enjoyed a lot. I will be very honest, though. I have never given, off the top of my head, I have never given a game that I was lukewarm on, that they really liked, a review score any higher than an 8. And a lot of times it came out as an 8 because of production quality, really nice components, really good presentation for the rules and things like that. But that's about it. As far as I will go, that's as high as I will go for a board game that I'm sort of like, it was fine. I enjoyed playing it, but the enjoyment came more from the camaraderie around the table than the actual game itself. Some things that will really ding a game big time is, of course, obviously enough, if we don't like it. And I will say that if I like a game that the other players didn't care for too much, I normally won't go higher than an 8.5. Yes, it means a little bit more that I enjoyed it compared to them, but still, I take that into account. And I swear I have a sneeze coming on. All right. So Chris Lundgren's talking about a low scoring game on Board Game Geek that they like. Oh yeah, that happens all the time. And there were times that I got called out on games that, what the hell was it? Was it Apocalypse? It was from Greenbrier Game, their zombie game. The second edition that came out. I reviewed it and I liked it. And people were like, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, I can't believe. It's like, no. They're like, how could you give it that highest? And it was like an 8.5, something like that. It wasn't like, oh my God, it's fantastic. Off the shelf, Board Game Reviews is popping in saying Apocalypse. Yes. It was Apocalypse 2. I think it was Defend the Burbs was the name of it. Cleveland RX is asking Scott Weigel if he's ever seen a computer game called Combat Mission. I've played it. Not too shabby, terrible graphics, but pretty solid World War II game. So anyway, if the rule presentation is a mess, that's major points. Production quality is crappy. That's major points. But I think the biggest ding that I will give to a board game is if we just didn't enjoy playing it. If we just kind of were like, oh, this is kind of a drag. Are we almost done with this game yet? Now, like as an example, my brother will get bored with a game faster than the rest of us will. But he won't sit there and be like, is this over yet? Unless the game is pretty bad. Pretty bad. But anyway, so that is how I will go about reviewing a board game. And like I said, the reason why it takes me a bit of time to get board game reviews out there is because I play it 3 times. So that's one of the reasons why I've kind of tried to shift away from doing as many board game reviews as I once did, simply because we just don't get together enough to play. And it's not just Elliot, it's my brother and my nephew, my niece. Yeah, everybody's working and stuff like that. So pretty tough to kind of schedule more than maybe once, possibly twice in a month to sit down and play some games. Plus, they also want to play some role-playing stuff. So anyway, speaking of role-playing games, my approach to role-playing games is a little bit different. So once again, production quality is important to me. So if I get a book and it looks as if the binding is pretty cheap, that the book's not going to hold up to repeated use at your game table, I will ding that. Most of the time these days, I don't see that. Only time I might see something like that is if something has been like a print on demand. Not necessarily, I'm not saying it's from Drive Through RPG. Maybe it is from like Lulu. But for the most part, binding's usually okay. Paper stock, thick paper stock, I will bump up a review score for that. Just like taking a look at just about every book that's released from Wizards of the Coast, that paper stock is really thin. Really thin. And those books don't hold up. They really don't. And it's not necessarily the binding that breaks down. It's the pages get torn easily. Just cheap production quality. So artwork, it's not a huge part of my review score, but it is part of my review score. So if the artwork is bland, kind of generic, lifeless, yeah, I'll ding a game for that. Now, I give high scores to old school Renaissance sort of role-playing games that have line art and the artwork's not very uniform. That doesn't really bother me much because it's supposed to be kind of an old school retro clone. So I'm fine with that. Now, granted, I have seen some awful artwork in my time. Funny enough, not really with an OSR role-playing game. Outbreak Undead, the first edition of that, I have mentioned this in the past, from Hunter's Entertainment. Awful. And I get it. It's supposed to be somebody trying to sketch stuff that they see. It is ridiculously bad. And I mean, it's glaringly bad. It's distractingly bad. So, LumenRX said they saw a YouTuber do a page through of his old copy of second edition AD&D book, and he tore a page while flipping through it simply by paging through too quickly. Kabuki Kid says the original AD&D books were made like school books. They were made to last. The only problem that we see with rule books from like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you'll usually have down here, oh my goodness, look, Year of Titans from Roll for Combat. You know, our sponsor. But you'll usually get some of the edging here. I forget what I think it's foxing, where you'll actually, it's exposed. But what I've seen a lot of is right here on the spine, where it separates out. It's all kind of bubbled out. I bought, I want to say it was a copy of the Monster Manual that was supposed to be in really good shape. And it showed up and it had all of that separation there. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I was like, no. I had bought that. I think I had honestly bought it through Amazon. It wasn't through eBay. And for one, it wasn't even the right cover. It was the later Jeff Easley artwork. And it was like, well, this is what was advertised. And then on top of that, the whole spine was coming off, right? It was all separated off. Or you'll see it kind of with bubbles. But that's what I see with a lot of the old AD&D books. But yeah, for the most part, like the ones I've got, and I didn't go crazy. I wasn't paying hundreds of dollars for each copy. I think the most I spent on one was 100. Back in the day, it's actually been quite a few years now. I think it's 5 or 6 years at least since I bought those. Anyway, so as far as my review scores with role-playing games, obviously enough, I'm not running the adventures when I'm giving review scores to adventures. And I know that bothers people. I have seen comments where it's like, oh, you can't give a review score if you haven't run this. And it's my answer to that. I don't usually reply, but my answer to that is I've been running role-playing games for over 4 decades. I can tell you right now, when I read an adventure, I can tell you how that's going to play out for the most part at a game table. If your average gamer is going to be enamored by that adventure, or if they're going to be bored out of their minds by that adventure, I got a pretty good, I can sniff those out pretty well. I don't necessarily have to run it. So with like adventures and that, if I'm entertained reading it, and if I'm sitting there as I'm reading through it thinking, you know, I could see Elliot and Greg and Cameron doing this, then that is a positive. If I'm sitting there reading through and I'm like, what in the world are they doing? Which happens a lot. It's kind of like you're assuming the characters will do this. What player in their right mind is going to do that? A recent Call of Cthulhu adventure collection, The Order of the Stone, was it The Order of the Stone, or was it the other one? The one that was the 3 separate event? No, it was The Order of the Stone. And it was like, what? It's like, what the hell's going on? No. So there's some discussion of sellers trying to cheat people on eBay. Yeah, I told the story about I sold a variant comic that I got at, I want to say it was a comic convention in LA. Yeah, this is years and years ago when I was in Arizona. And it was a $75 book. and I sold it for 150. Packaged it up all nice, sent it, got an email back. I said, oh, it's all damaged. It's all dipped. So eBay told him, oh, okay, send it back. So they gave him the money back. And I got a backing board, a comic book backing board with a smiley face going like this. And of course, I was out the $75 and the book. I was like, yeah, I won't be using eBay again. So Chris Lundgren asked, would I ever consider doing reviews of what looked to be a GM screen and what to look for in one? Probably not. There isn't much to them. I mean, you're looking at what, a 3-minute video? People will be like, Jeff, your intro and your outro was longer than your review. I mean, there are some like Game Master screens. Like, I'll be the first to tell you that I personally think that the Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master screen that they sell is crap. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff that you don't need, that you're not going to be referring to. And there's other stuff that it's like, yeah, I would have liked to have seen that on the Dungeon Master screen, but it's not. There's way too much with, at least the last one I saw, maybe it's changed. Way too much about conditions on the Dungeon Master screen. And it's sort of like, I don't need that. There's more useful information that could be on that screen. But anyway, Kabuki Kid says, yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, and of course, eBay was like, oh, I was like, I'm like, this guy actually wrapped up this backing board in newspaper from where he lives. I said, I've got the date and everything on these newspapers. Oh, no, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's when I was like, you know what? As a seller on eBay, get ready to get fucked, because it's going to happen if you're a seller on eBay. And I can only imagine how bad it is now. All right. Anyway, back to our reviewing. So if I'm entertained by the adventure, or even just, a core book, supplement, whatever, that goes a long way. If I find that the information is very well presented, that goes a long way. If it's like a core rule book or a rule book of any sort that is logically presented, that's important. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, well, it's got to be character creation right up front and then fluff in the back. No, it can be fluff up front and then get into the meat and potatoes. But then some games, in fact, did I just share that review, or I have that in the can? I think I've got it in the can still. I forget. Just reviewed a core book that's like, okay, all over the place. And I'm like, this is really interesting. But, oh no, it was, I did share the review. It was for No Going Home, which was like, hey, you know what? This is pretty interesting. But for one, it was not well put together. It was relatively difficult to figure out how to run the game from the book. And it did not have a logical progression. So you actually got into an example of combat before you even knew what the attributes were and character creation and stuff like that. It was like, we got like examples of like the spell casting, the whispers, before we even got into what they are. I was like, okay. But all in all, it was still a pretty interesting read. And it did seem like, the setting I thought was cool. It was just, I think, mechanically kind of clunky, and would be one of those sorts of games where it'd be like, yeah, I do like this setting, but I would probably look to port it over to something else. Um, so, so being able to understand how the rules work is very, very important. I will say, and I pointed this out before, so if you're a longtime viewer, you already know this. Rules don't matter that much to me. So I am certainly not the sort of reviewer who's going to be like, oh, well, I can tell that in this situation in combat, you're going to have problems with XYZ. Not really. I can tell you if I have the impression if it's going to be kind of wonky or if it's going to feel kind of clunky. Yeah, but I mean, as far as it's like, well, I can see that it's far more difficult for characters to hit with ranged shots from XYZ weapon as opposed to ABC weapon that shouldn't be that. No, I do not get that deep into the woods or weeds with any game, really. So as far as role-playing games, production quality, artwork, do I understand the core mechanics of the game? Not necessarily do I agree with the core mechanics, or if I think the core mechanics will be entertaining in actual execution. That's different. As well as, was I entertained by it? Is the game world, game setting interesting? Is it drawing me in? But the core aspect of a role-playing game review is, would I want to A, run it, or B, play in it? And if the answer to that is yeah, then it's going to get a good review score. If it's it's all right, well, then it's going to probably get a 5 or a 6. And if it's worse than that, if it's like, oh, hell no, I would never run this game. This game's a mess. I'm going to let the publisher know that that's going to be the review and give them the option if they want me to go ahead and talk about how their game is a mess. So, as far as review scores, I know people are curious, well, what separates like an 8 from a 9 and a 9 from a 10? So I'll kind of work my way down. So a 10 is just absolutely fantastic. And it's 10s from the gaming gang are rare, but they're not incredibly rare. I mean, you do see them. I want to say right off the top of my head, I have had some Call of Cthulhu releases that were 10s. The Midgard source book from Kobold Press is a 10. Twilight Struggle is a 10. So yeah, there are 10s. I would say there's probably at least 40 out of the over 1,000 reviews that we've done. Might be more than that. Could maybe be 60 or 70 if I think, because I'm thinking about games that I have personally given a 10. So like a 9.5 just misses out. 9.5's got some little quibble. Maybe there's a bunch of typos in the book. Maybe the artwork is sort of, just like as an example, I really do think Savage Worlds is really well done. But the artwork is just bland. Sean O'Donnell says I'm a 10. Okay, thanks. Jack Hanks has joined us in chat once again. Welcome aboard. So when I do reviews of most Savage Worlds releases, it gets dinged a little bit and it's just how they like their artwork to be. That's just their thing. But to me, the artwork just comes across as being kind of bland. Even when it's like action oriented art, kind of bland. On the flip side, Cobalt Press, it's not like they've got a lot of exciting action packed artwork, but just the art that they do of like single characters, which you see a lot in the Cobalt Press books, is really well done. And I really do like them. And the artwork gives you a good feel for that creature or that nationality or that culture and how they dress and things like that. I really dig that a lot. Also, Roll for Combat. Yes, granted, they're our sponsor right now. They also go way out of their way to make sure that there's really good artwork in the releases I've seen, at least to this point, from them. That's going to score points, in my opinion. Now, there are people who don't like the same kind of artwork I like, and there's artwork out there that other people are like, oh, yeah, I like that. And I'm like, really? Like, no, thanks. So the difference between a 9 and a 10 is some minor thing. It's just a minor thing. Like, it's a core rule book for a system that's really different, kind of out there maybe, but there's no adventure. There's no introductory adventure. That I'm going to ding. I'm going to ding a point for that, because if it's a rule book that's, if it's a D100 game, no, I don't really need to have an adventure for that. If it's a D20 game and you're rolling a difficulty or a challenge number or higher, no, I don't really need an adventure. If it's something where it's like, oh, well, it's 2 dice and you're going to add your skill and your attribute bonuses together and you're looking to roll higher than whatever and blah, blah, it's like, okay, so that's a little bit different. And it's set in some game world that's like really unique. Yeah, I want to see an adventure. I want to see at least an introductory scenario. Because for one, it's going to give you an idea of how adventures are presented and the flow of an adventure. Because when you look at different role-playing games, depending on the publisher and the creator and the IP, you'll see that the flow of adventures is different. The way adventures are presented are different. So a Chaosium Call of Cthulhu adventure collection or a campaign is presented far differently than a Wizards of the Coast 5e Dungeons and Dragons adventure book. Way different. And usability is also something that comes into play. So especially if it's an adventure that I'm reviewing or an adventure collection or whatever, how easy is it going to be to use that at the table as a game master is important too. Because crazy enough, there are writers out there who, share adventures and stuff. And we've seen it with big publishers too. I mean, we've seen adventures for Dungeons and Dragons where, you're looking at, oh, look, it's 8 paragraphs of read aloud. It's like, no. And it's always like, read or paraphrase the information. And okay, so you want me to paraphrase 10 paragraphs? I don't think so. So yes, usability, very important as well. Typos, stuff like that, it happens. It's not that big a deal. I will ding a release for them, and I will ding a release if it's got lots of them. So, but I get it. Like, as an example, Castles and Crusades, yeah, those books have some typos and grammatical errors that have been around for years. Supposedly they're going to be gone and reforged. That's what I have been told. So, I mean, yeah. So the reality when I reviewed like Castles and Crusades, yeah, that was sort of like, okay, some typos here. But as long as it's not something where it's like all of a sudden I like stop and go, wait a second, what? Or if it takes me out of the flow where it's like, the hell, where the hell's the rest of the paragraph? That you'll see that from time to time. Where it's like, so the paragraph cuts off in the middle and it's gone. And it just picks up with a new paragraph. Russell Higgins is with us in chat. Says, isn't an adventure completely different animal than a game? Yeah. I mean, just kind of breaking up between role-playing game stuff and board game stuff. Good adventures are independent of game rules. Not necessarily. Some adventures take advantage of particular mechanics in games quite well. Some of the best Underdark games have been with Savage Worlds rules. Nice. I'm not aware of that. So, Lumen RX says Reforged has 2 typos. You're welcome. Or they reforged 2 typos in C&C. As far as how, what would be the word? Nitpicky I am? Not really. I tend to try, and I say this all the time, I try to be an ambassador of this hobby. Now, I'm not going to mislead somebody into buying something that's crap or not be truthful with what I think of a game release. But I'm not one of these, I've said it before, I'm not someone who's going to savage something. Because to me, it's just not my thing. It's just not my bag. Game Master's Hobbies with us says, hello, gang. I'm guessing nobody runs an RPG adventure 100% as written by the author. That is my assumption. I don't know if that's the case. That's always kind of been my assumption, but I don't think that's the case. I think there are some folks out there, and I think it is more the Dungeons and Dragons crowd that look to run stuff exactly as written. Could be wrong, but I have the impression that there's probably less wiggle room with some dungeon masters out there than game masters of other games. Chris Lundgren asks, how do I review OSR and new SR versus mass market RPGs? What do I use as a standard? I don't really differentiate between the two. So the reality is, I mean, I'm not expecting the, most expensive paper stock and inks that are going to really pop off the page from a smaller publisher who is sending me a print-on-demand hardcover from Drive-Thru RPG. The reality is the production quality doesn't play that huge a role when it comes to role-playing game stuff. So, Pete Stragglitz says they've run a few Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures 100% as written. Goodman Games has some great writers, and it feels well play-tested at the end. I think that's part of it, too, is you can tell when you're reading an adventure if this is just somebody had concocted the tale and they put it down and maybe they've play tested parts of it. And you can also tell when an adventure has been play tested for years. And then the author finally thought, hey, you know what? I am going to pitch this, see if I can get it in print, or I am going to kickstart this, see if I can get it in print. And they do. And you can tell it's like, okay. Because once again, you're not sitting there reading something where, because the reality is most adventures have some linear aspects to them, unless it's a hex crawl, which right there, even hex crawls have kind of a plotted, I don't want to say like a story plot, but kind of a plotted sort of route that your players might take. That's why a lot of times with hex crawls, you'll have references to other hexes next door or nearby. Where it's like, oh, so if the players have done this, this is going to happen here. Chris Lundgren says 5.5 crowd is exactly like that. They feel if you don't run rules pure, they act like you're cheating them and whimper and complain. Jeez. Scott said, hard to tell when a dungeon master will never even try anything except following a 5e scripted adventure. I'm the first one to point out, I am not someone who creates adventures on my own. I always start with something. But I'm also one of these people who does not run things 100% as written. Because a lot of times I know with my group, I know the things I can do that are going to engage them, going to get them, hook them in, freak them out, stuff like that. So I will kind of put stuff in, take stuff out that I know is going to work with my group. So, but anyway, difference between like a 9 and an 8, just more problems with it. Maybe it's a board game that's not as smooth playing as it could have been, but it's still really good. Or it could be an adventure that's got some steps along the way that just don't feel natural or feel tacked on. But still, an 8 to 9 is a very high recommendation. A 7 is a good recommendation. I know sometimes I'll review stuff and I give it a 7 and I'll get an email saying, hey, kind of surprised you gave it a 7. It's like, yeah, but 5 is like average. 5.5 is like average. 5.5 is even a recommendation essentially for the right crowd. So a 7 is a solid recommendation. It's not fantastic. Sorry. But, funny enough, most publishers, doesn't matter if they're publishing role-playing games or if they're publishing board games, they know when they release something to the public that's maybe not finished or maybe not polished. They know that. They might not admit to that, but they know that. I mean, you'll see, especially board games, you'll see board games come out where it's sort of like, well, you know what? Prime example, Mr. President from GMT Games. You want to talk about complex games? It's like, man, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. But that was a game that it was like, okay, well, when are we ever going to send this to the printer? Because every time we turn around, there's something new that's being put in. It's like we're never going to get this game onto the market. And it still came out and it still needed some polish. Kabuki Kid says Mr. President is a massive table hog. It's not just a table hog. I can't imagine how long it would take to run through a campaign. I know they have something like 680 hours. I know it's 680 minutes, but I guarantee it's closer to 680 hours. W4 says 7 is the default IGN score. Yeah, it could be. I don't know. Funny enough, I pop by IGN once in a while when I'm curious about a computer game and what they think of it. And then I'll like search out a few other reviewers. They don't really do many game reviews anymore. It's like when I'll go and click on the reviews and it's like, what the hell? Movie, TV show, movie, game, TV show. I was like, Pete Strykowitz is Mr. President and his cat. No, it's a solitaire game from GMT Games. Huge, massive box. So anyway, but that's kind of an idea. I don't give too many 6s. Like I said, once we start getting into like 6s and 5s, I always touch base with the publisher. And like I said, even a 5.5 is saying, it's okay. There's probably a crowd out there who's going to like it better than myself. Publishers, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I want it out there with that score. So anyway, all righty. That is it for this time out. I will decide if tomorrow night we're going to talk about the possibility of a downturn in the hobby on the horizon, or if we'll go with something else. Like I said, it's not necessarily a fan of like bummer topics. So we'll find out. All right. That is it for this time out. Don't forget, we are sponsored by Roll for Combat. Yes. And their new Kickstarter, Year of Titans, which will provide you with a brand new species for either 5e Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder 2nd Edition each and every month of 2025, plus a bonus. So you actually get a baker's dozen of those species. So if you haven't checked it out, by all means, take a peek. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, tip of the cap to you. Definitely appreciate that, because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company. And of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I really do appreciate all of you taking time out to watch any of the over 2,100 videos here on the channel. I know when I say that, I'm like, zoinks. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. Also let you know when I share other videos, such as my review of Old School Essentials Adventure Anthology Volume 2 from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. That is today's review. You might recall all throughout the month of November, I'm aiming to share a brand new review each and every day of the month. And it might be a written review over at thegaminggang.com, or it might be a video review from yours truly. Just have to find out. Each and every day, you'll see a new one. Alrighty, everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, I hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.